Welcome to the RotoWire Prospect Podcast. I'm your host, James Anderson. We're brought to you by the Chalkboard app, and my guest this week is my buddy Chris Welsh, who's out in Arizona. Always hang out with Chris when I go out for the Arizona Fall League, which I'll be doing again this year. And so, Chris, I wanted to preview the AFL with you, and then I also want to talk about your P1 ADP, the prospect ADP that you put together. We'll talk about that towards the end of the show. But how you doing, man? Thanks for hopping on.
Oh, I'm doing good, dude. It's I tell it to everybody. It's like literally the minor league season ended, or through AA ended yesterday. But as the season ends, things ramp up for me because I'm doing these prospect ADPs, which I've been doing for, God, I think it's my 6th year that I've been doing them. I saw some people out there oh, this is interesting. I saw these other people talking about these type of things. More people are doing it. And I'm like, I've been doing it for 6 years. I've been putting these out for a long time. And then obviously the Arizona Fall League, which everybody knows I'm very close to because I live out here. I've been going this will be year 10 that I have been hardcore going, and I practically live out there. So this is a good, really fun time for me. We're all redoing our ranks. I got ADPs. I got the Arizona Fall League, and I'm stoked as hell to not only just talk about it, but I get to see your pretty face in a month or month and a half out here, and some of my friends over at First Pitch. So it's a cool time, man. Yeah,
absolutely. And I was going to ask you how long you've been doing the P1 ADP, but yeah, 6 years sounds about right on that. And
yeah, 2021, I think. Yeah, I think that's about it.
This kind of reminds me, just at the very, very top, Welsh, of kind of the prime years of the AFL when we'd be seeing Vlad and Acuna. We don't have Connor Griffin, who, spoiler alert, is the number one prospect in your prospect ADP. He's your number one prospect. He's my number one prospect. We're not going to see Connor Griffin in the AFL this year, which is unfortunate, but we are going to get to see a couple other pretty consensus top 5 dynasty type players. And I want to start with Kevin McGonigle. Welsh and I are going to kind of go back and forth nominating candidates to win Arizona Fall League MVP. And I think it's worthwhile because then it kind of sets the stage for expectations so that, if a player goes out and dominates, and he's not someone Welsh and I bring up, that's pretty noteworthy. Whereas if one of these guys that we talk about right away dominates, that's kind of to be expected. But Kevin McGonigle, Welsh, he's my number 2 prospect. I believe he's your number 2 prospect. How long do you expect him to be in the AFL? Is he going to be there the entire time? And is there any way that he just doesn't go out there and put up video game numbers?
Oh yeah, that's the first question's a really good point, because the second one of is there no way he doesn't put up video game number? Nah, he's going to put up video game numbers. He's going to rock out here. How long he stays out here, I'm going to go with the whole time. The whole players leaving early thing, to me, it's 2 pieces in the Arizona Fall League. It's pitchers are the ones that leave early. We had a couple years ago, Ricky Tiedemann and Jackson Jobe came out, which was awesome. It was oh my gosh, look at these amazing pitchers we have out here. They started 5 games and they both left after the same game. They went against each other and they were gone and they left early. So pitchers are more of the commonplace for a guy to just disappear from. The other situation where that happened was this year, but it was a team that was located out here in the Athletics. And I believe they're going to do this again. Last year, they had Henry Bolt out, and then halfway through, you guys probably heard of Nick Kurtz. Nick Kurtz came out and replaced it. And we kind of knew that was going to happen. So the reason that's a little bit different is because those teams are located here in Arizona, and you might have camps going on. And I think the transition is a lot easier than a East Coast team that plays in Florida doing it. So all of that aside, I'm going to say that I think McGonigle is going to stay out there the whole time. The thing I think that puts some of these guys in danger is them playing in the playoffs. I'm going to throw out a random guy. Also call-ups. Zach Cole with the Houston Astros was set to come out here, and then he got called up the next day. That's a situation where a guy could not come out. If a player played through the minor league playoffs and got enough at bats, there's always the potential. But I feel pretty good that McGonigle is going to stay here the whole time. He's going to play out the whole time. And I agree with you. I think he's going to ball out.
Yeah, and Kevin McGonigle, lefty hitting, shortstop. He only played 88 games this year because his beginning of the season was delayed due to injury. So a pretty obvious pick to go to the AFL. In those 88 games, McGonigle slash 305, 408, 583, 19 homers, 10 steals, more walks than strikeouts, just a 11.6% strikeout rate for McGonigle this year. 46 games at AA, no games at AAA. I think he's big league ready though right now, Welsh, and I don't know how much the Tigers considered starting his clock this year and having him be part of their push, but I'm kind of operating under the assumption he's going to make the opening day roster next year for the Tigers.
I think this move is that. I think this is part of that move. Like you bring him out here, because you missed some time at the beginning. You've pressed him through the levels. He's succeeded at every spot. So why come out here? Well, you could face the Arizona Fall League rightfully so, gets kind of knocked as being a really bad pitching environment. You're not wrong about that. Where that is like it's smaller ballparks, the ball flies and stuff like that, elevation. You can look at that as more of the reason. People make a lot about the pitchers, but here's the interesting thing about the pitchers that come out here. It's a ton of relievers. You get starters that get put in relief. So what I'm getting at is like, yeah, the pitching can be pretty negative, but also you want a guy to, 21 years old, 22. You want him to go up against like 25-year-old guys that have been in AAA, that starters are going to just go ball out for one inning. It's a not bad environment for you to face a little bit more advanced pitching while also finding some success. So yeah, I think this is lining him up to maybe be similar to like Nick Kurtz. They completely different body types, of course, but like as a guy that could come up really early, maybe break camp. I'm not sure about that, but come up pretty soon. And what I point out is the Scottsdale Stadium where he plays, it's a really interesting environment to right field. I watched a game last year where Drew Gilbert, everyone kind of likes Drew Gilbert right now, but everybody's been hating Drew Gilbert for like a year or two, dropped just absolutely 2 nukes to right field. It's just a very hitter-friendly environment for left-handed hitters. That's why like he's really going to be put in a position to succeed out here. And that success could get to where you're talking about, where he could be an opening day starter for this team. But there's no doubt he's going to get significant time. Maybe the reason also outside of like a little bit more push is like the Tigers, it would be beneficial for the Tigers to get the PPI. If McGonigle were to be a starter all next season, he would be in line for them to get extra pick compensation. So you don't start the clock. There's another reason for it, but yeah, I mean, he's the dude out here.
Yeah. And I think the next dude with a capital D would be Sebastian Walcott. He's my number 4 prospect, I think. And he's, he kind of fits that mold of like the guys that I talked about from like 5, 6, 7 years ago in the AFL. He's not going to be prospect eligible a year from now, so he wouldn't be coming out here next year. And I am less confident in Walcott making the Rangers out of camp next year. But, if he has a monster year or a monster showing in the AFL, I do think people are going to at least start to push him up those like draft and hold boards and expect him to be up in the first half next year at the very least.
Yeah, I think I'd most part agree. There's a part of me that feels like they might pump the brakes a tiny bit with him, just because, I think there's a continued focus on like lowering strikeouts, which he did this year. Batting average kind of dipped a little bit, but he's still showing off like these like high-end elite tools. So I would lean he's more of like a mid-season guy, because I don't even think he's turned 20 years old yet, if I have this correct. But the thing that really is an advantage for him, this is his home ballpark. Take these little small things away or not. I watched him play countless rookie ball games here. It's his facility. It's his spring training facility. He played his entire rookie ball here. I mean, there is a comfort level of understanding the ballpark, the personnel. You want to give like a little bit of an extra touch. With that, this environment, like we'll see where he goes. Like he can steal bases. Usually we see some big stolen bases happen out of here. That ballpark, we've seen some big homers in. I think there's a lot of things that work in his favor. It's just, what is a swing and miss going to look like? Sometimes people just get in their heads. Sometimes they want to be hyper aggressive here. I remember, Carson Williams, we're really kind of seeing who he is a little bit now, but at that time he was just here to be hyper aggressive. First year Colson Montgomery was here. He was here to be hyper aggressive. and you saw massive failure, because then what guys started doing is finding a spot, picking on them, a lot of like, low off speed stuff. And then these guys got in their heads, and Matt McLean did the same thing. So what I'm getting at is, like, I have a little bit of a worry that could, he could kind of get ahead of himself. He could get a lot of breaking pitches, and he might just be here to just let it rip. And sometimes that doesn't work, but the tools are immensely loud. Like, he could be the most exciting. Like, McGonigle's, I think, the most polished player. Sebastian Walcott has the tools to be like Acuna level. And that's what's so exciting. I just don't think he has the polish of it, but he belongs in this discussion because this is a top, not unarguably a top 10 prospect in baseball, probably closer to a top, 5 or 6.
Now, I will say Walcott's finished the year very, very strong. Strikeout rate under 10% over his last 21 games, walk rate of 17% over that stretch. So obviously the pitching at AA pretty watered down this time of year, but as you said, he doesn't turn 20 until this winter. So like, he couldn't be kind of peaking at a better time. And I think the names you listed there in terms of guys that have struggled, like if he struggles in that way, that's going to be surprising to me, because I think he's like a clear cut above those guys. But like, that's why I think it's good to talk about it now, because like my expectation is that Walcott's going to have a very loud AFL, especially from an exit velocity standpoint. Like, he's going to hit a home run, and it's going to be a race between Welsh and whoever else is there to like get the video up and get the EV up.
Absolutely. You know it. Yeah. You know that.
But like, if Walcott does, if he is such a free swinger that he's not able to kind of show off his tools like that, that would surprise me in a negative way, but it's in play and it's something worth watching. It's definitely going to be one of the biggest things I'll be watching when I'm out there. Who do you want to talk about next, Welsh? Like, we're going to talk about like the 5 most likely players to win MVP. I think I'm higher on Walcott for that award than you are, but who would be a guy that you'd like to bring up next?
Well, I think there might be a bigger name, but let's stick with this team, because I think this surprise team is the most exciting, maybe the most complete. Like, I did a breakdown on my Prospect One show, talking about the rosters. Usually like Mesa is this really strong team. They're the weakest I think they've ever been. Peoria is a usually strong team. It's all right. The surprise team, and why they're so fascinating, is because I think they have like 2 studs. Now, I don't know if this is the higher prospect than another guy we should talk about, but let's talk about Aidan Miller, because I think Aidan Miller has the potential to really shine here. And I think, like, if I'll be honest with you, if I'm picking between the two, I think I might go on the side of Aidan Miller, because he has also had a really strong end of the season. He's walking like crazy, career high in the minor leagues, 80 walks. His strikeouts have ticked up. It's something we have to watch, but he has been way, way aggressive. Over 70 base attempts stolen this minor league season. He's stolen 57, caught 15 times, high OBP. If you're just looking at like extra base hits, we're over the 40 marker for this season, 14 homers. This is an environment, as he has gotten hot, where I think he's proven to be so aggressive on the base paths. This past year, Durbin with the Brewers set the AFL record for stolen bases. I wouldn't be surprised if Miller doesn't do that. This is a place where you usually have poor catching, and you have guys running wild. Now, defensively, there are some guys you're going to see like Salas and Duno on the same team. There's a couple catchers, but I expect guys to be running. So I think Miller could put up video game numbers as far as stolen bases go. I think from a power perspective, you could see it in line with Walcott. I really think that Aidan Miller has an opportunity to reestablish his prospect rank. We can talk about the P1 ADPs and stuff and like where some of these guys went, but looking here, Aidan Miller was not a top 30 prospect in the P1 ADPs. And I think based statistically on what he did, the AFL could be a slight little push to get him back over. So I really do think he is an MVP type candidate. If he hits for a high average, you're going to have the homers and stolen bases. And I think he might be the dude. And him and Walcott, they might eat into each other a little bit, but we've seen that before in the AFL. We've seen 2 players just go ballistic. I think this is probably one of the better teams, and I really like Aidan Miller.
Yeah, he was definitely the third guy I wanted to talk about, so I'm glad you brought Miller up. I've got him ranked number 21 on my last update, so I definitely think he was a good value in those P1 ADPs. I
got him at 20, by the way, so you and I are like lockstep.
Nice. Yeah, and look, like this guy, when he was drafted, it was all about the bat, right? But as you said, like just looking at, like, he got promoted to AAA, but just looking since August 1st, including AA, 6 homers and 19 steals in 34 games with a 1100 OPS from Miller. More walks and strikeouts over that stretch. So he's just could not be more well positioned to really eat out there, like you said. You and I are, I don't know if how much Nate Handy, friend of the show, had to twist your arm, but we're doing a draft with 13 other degenerates here, organized by Nate Handy, and we're going to be drafting a total of 60 AFL hitters. This doesn't seem like the fairest exercise with a snake draft, just kind of given how much it's going to fall off after these top few guys. But like McGonigle, I think is going to be number 1 pick. I think Miller would probably be the safest pick at number 2.
Probably. Yeah, probably right there. Yeah, these actually started with me. This started with my Patreon. We've been doing these drafts for Nate has taken he's taken ownership to like do them, but I believe this is year 3 or 4 that we've been doing this, where it's kind of like a best ball, roto type of thing that we do. And we got to give a little shout out because it's like a version of our friend Paul Sporer, and he would do the DFS drafts for the Fall Stars game that we do. This just created, I highly suggest, if you love the AFL, this is such a cool thing to do. I wish it was automated. I wish there was a better way to do it, but you need somebody to be able to like do all the counting stats. But yeah, I totally agree. Like, this gets weird, but you can find some dudes, a guy like Durbin push people. I had a run 2 years ago where I was all the way up until the end. I was really doing well, and then I kind of fell off. So this is going to be a fun exercise. I agree. McGonigle will be 1. Miller, I think, is a lock top 3 pick. Maybe Walt. Maybe the order that we gave, I do think likely is probably the top 3 from a talent perspective here. But Miller's the dude, man.
So Welsh, we've talked McGonigle, Walcott, Miller. To me, there were like 3 other guys that are just sort of that big name, big pedigree hitting prospect that could be mentioned here. Braden Montgomery with the White Sox, Josue Paula with the Dodgers, and Charlie Condon with the Rockies. Do you have a favorite of those 3? Braden Montgomery, Josue Paula, Charlie Condon, just for who's going to have the best AFL from a statistical standpoint?
Yes, sir. I actually only have, so I wrote 5 players. This guy is number 4, and I have one more that is not in discussion. Maybe he's a deeper name that we can talk about, but the only player of those that I put on my list was Josue Paula. Braden Montgomery got that fracture in his foot. I wonder if there's a possibility this is similar to Kyle Lewis from many years ago. Not that he turns out like Kyle Lewis, by the way, hopefully not, but that Kyle Lewis, when he came to the AFL, he didn't play for like 2 weeks, kind of getting set. I don't know where the health is going to be. I would suspect he's going to DH. They're probably not going to have him like play full time, or maybe he sits out for a week or 2. So I actually think Montgomery is a little bit back there, though I love the talent. Charlie Condon, I have a weird relationship with Charlie Condon just because when I saw him out here in rookie ball, he looked like one of the biggest busts. Just he couldn't do anything. He's completely turned it around in season. He couldn't hit breaking pitches. If you threw him a first pitch breaking pitch, then he was gone. He was done the rest of the at bat. So maybe that changes. I think he's going to see a lot of weird breaking pitches in this environment. So I think he has a possibility just because it's sexy, but it's DePaula for me. DePaula's another guy just like Sebastian Walcott, where he gets to play like in his home environment. He's going to be playing at Camelback Ranch, where he's been for a couple years now. So I mean, he's going to get to kind of be like team leader, if you will. Batting average dipped a little bit, but just kind of like Miller, it's like really high OBP. I think he's going to be a little bit more grip it and rip it. Stole a bunch of bases this year. He's got loud exit velocities. I think that's one of the big things you're going to see is some loud hits in that Camelback offense. And from an MVP standpoint, I think you got some bangers on this team, whether you've got Montgomery behind him or you got a guy like Kendall George who stole 100 bases in front. As long as he plays hitting in front, that there's RBI opportunities, there are run opportunities. You have a guy that's played in the majors and Nacho Alvarez around him that I just think from like a loud tool standpoint, DePaul is the guy. I think he underperformed with his bat, and I think he's going to be able to kind of right that ship. I think he is a highly touted prospect that should be in the range of like an Aidan Miller. So he was kind of the clear-cut version of this maybe MVP candidate. Yeah,
great point with the Montgomery injury. I agree with most of what you said about those three guys, but I did want to mention Montgomery and Condon because I think just given their pedigree, given their age, like the expectation should be that when those guys play out here, they should be performing well, I think. So like if Condon goes out and like he could easily lead the AFL in home runs. I think like that's possible.
Sure.
Condon could also have just a really scary strikeout rate for this environment, hit for a low average, just be kind of a mess. And like it could tank his value again. He's been a tough guy for me to rank as well.
That's a funny thing. I wanted you to expand on that because I was going to say earlier, if Walcott struggles, I think it's going to like stress people out, but I don't think it'll tank the value. If you were to have asked the question, who's the one player? Because I think a lot of people will be like, pump the brakes, dude. It's AFL. Like, don't get too excited. Don't get not excited. That's fine. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But if there is one guy that could tank their value in the season, I feel like Charlie Condon would at least be on the top 2 or 3 if you were trying to like narrow it down. He would be one of those guys where if he comes out and hits like 180 and his strikeout rate is bad again and he's chasing breaking pitches, everyone's going to be like, what are we doing? Like he just solidified himself maybe back as being like a top 50 prospect. I feel like people would, because you're going to have so many scouts and so many eyes on it that people would really turn. I feel like he's the guy you would give the least grace to of the big name prospects.
Yeah, and I think Paula, like I've got him ranked kind of in that same range you do. I think a lot of people kind of have him ranked in that same sort of like 15 to 25 range or so. But if he goes out there as a 20-year-old and is one of the 3 or 4 best players in the league and is a little bit more aggressive, like you said, he's been maybe overly passive at times, and he does have just so much more raw power than he's shown just in terms of the home runs.
Absolutely.
So DePaula, like, he could maybe go from being sort of a consensus top 25 prospect to like a consensus top 15 prospect. And then, just hopefully Montgomery is able to just get healthy, playing some games. But there is actually one player, Welsh, that I wanted to mention who I would take 4th ahead of Montgomery, ahead of DePaula, ahead of Charlie Condon. But I will mention him to you after this message from our sponsors. Cash in on your MLB picks this season with Chalkboard. Simply choose more or less on your favorite player stats to win up to 5,000 times your money. For a limited time only, new players get $20 free with no deposit required. Yes, you heard that right. $20 free just on sign up. See why over 100 million fans have already locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold, hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take your money and run, or hammering the daily promos, today is your chance to win up to 40 grand on a single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines and get into the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports, now available in 30 plus states. Download Chalkboard today and use promo code ROTOMLB. That's ROTOMLB to get $20 free with no deposit required. All right, back with the Welsh, and we're talking hitters in the Arizona Fall League. And we kind of covered the sort of blue chippy top 4, top 5 hitting prospects. But there's one prospect, Welsh, that I wanted to mention first as sort of a sleeper to win MVP. And that's Enrique Bradfield with the Orioles.
Okay.
Like I just think he's got such a good control of the zone. Like he's not going to be out there chasing. He's going to take exactly what pitchers give him, and he's going to be the fastest guy out there. And like I just think he would be my pick. There's a lot of speedsters going there, but I think he's got by far the most advanced bat of those guys. So if there were to be a guy that sort of went Caleb Durbin this year and won the MVP in that manner, Enrique Bradfield of the Orioles would be my pick.
That's interesting. I mean, he's got some competition. I mean, Kendall George just stole 100 bases. So like there's a couple speedsters to go. I really like that one because I kind of agree. Like Bradford isn't a do too much type of guy, and he might do enough to just be someone we are staring at the entire season. I like that one. I've also got a deeper name. We're going to talk about a few, kind of breakout sleepery guys. I got a couple names in there. This was the other guy that I threw out there, and I think this is the deepest name for MVP. And I got to be honest with you, there's a couple guys I think that really could eat out here that I tried to decide between. But the player I went with is on the pure, I think they might be on the same team. Do I have that? No. Baltimore's not on this team, but I am going to go, or maybe I'm wrong about that. Baltimore is on this team. So it's the exact same team. These are going to be fighting each other. What about Cam Collier? Cam Collier did not put up big, loud counting stats this year. He missed a bunch of time. He ended up hitting 279, 4 homers, a little stolen base in there, tons of doubles, though. He had 21 doubles in 95 games, less at bats than he had the year prior. I think Cam Collier, I'm a little worried he could be Tamar Johnson-like. I don't want to see the passiveness. You got a couple guys that really could line into being like, hey, you're a little bit passive here. If he's a guy that lets it rip, he's got the bat to ball skills. He's got the pure raw power. This is a great, I mean, they're all great ballparks to hit in, if we're being honest, but that right field for left-handed hitters, we talked about Kyle Manzardo, Jacob Marcy, they've taken advantage of it in Peoria. I think this is a really, really good spot for Cam Collier to shine out. So maybe like, your Bradfield, my Collier, they're like super dark horses for MVP, but I think he has the skill set to be a player that hits more homers in the AFL than he did in the minor leagues this year. So Collier was one that stood out to me as like a super dark horse MVP.
Yeah, Collier would be he'd probably be my number one pick for like trade for them now before the AFL starts.
Love that. Yep.
He's a tough guy to value for that draft we're doing, just because I don't see him running out here or out there where you are. I don't see Cam Collier coming to Wisconsin either, but I think if it all works out, it's just going to be big time power, and people are going to forget about this year's lack of power coming back from that wrist issue. How about Max Anderson, infielder with the Tigers, who I've got in my top 150. I think he's going to spend a decent amount of next year in the big leagues. He's 23. This year between AA and AAA / 298, 354, 487, 19 homers, 15.6% strikeout rate. So he definitely kind of fits more into that like Aidan Miller, Kevin McGonigle sort of advanced hitter, close to big league ready. He's not that sexy. He's not going to steal a ton of bases, but I just think people have maybe been sleeping on how good Max Anderson's bat is. The AFL would be a good chance for him to kind of open people's eyes.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. The one thing that maybe keeps me off a little bit of what they're going to end up doing, but that Scottsdale team, they have 9 infielders. They have 9 listed infielders. What we haven't heard are any of these guys, I want to say DeAndre Smith was an outfielder. He was here before, so he might be, so what I'm getting at is like, is it a little clogged? Do they do like, this guy doesn't play every other day type of thing? But yeah, Max has a really, really good opportunity to thrive here. And yeah, look, I actually think that team is kind of sneaky, by the way. I think it's the only draft pick from this year. Ethan Petrie is also on this team. So we'll see if Zach Cole gets replaced, but I like Max Anderson.
Who's your next sleeper you want to talk about?
All right. So are we on to our sleeper range, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. I ended up having 3. So I'm going to throw out, I'm trying to figure out which one. Let's do Tommy White. I think this is a spot like Tommy White absolutely can thrive in that. I'm not excited about that Mesa team whatsoever, but Tommy Tanks being out here has an opportunity to hit some serious bombs. Going to stay on the east side. Hit 275, 12 homers, 23 doubles in 93 games this past year. Tons of extra base hits. From a fantasy perspective, like what we're talking about, not going to steal bases, but this is a place where this is a guy that does not strike out a lot. He's also not overtly passive. So if you've got really good bat to ball skills for a guy that's not going to keep the bat on his shoulder with this type of power, don't be surprised when Tommy White hits 6 or 7 homers in the AFL and has a week where we're just like staring, 4 homers in 1 week. Like, I think Tommy White is a definite sleeper guy. He could get overvalued because of the AFL versus like what his real fantasy stuff is, but he's also a player that's like, if they didn't have like so many corner infielders and whatnot, you could see him being in the majors soon. But I think Tommy White is someone that is he's a sleeper because he's going to thrive in the Arizona Fall League.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I'm not that high on Tommy White in Dynasty, but I do think if we're just looking at guys who could put up big time 4 category numbers in the AFL, Tommy White definitely fits the bill. How about Carson Roccaforte with the Royals. I wasn't as familiar with just how good Roccaforte's outfield defense is prior to this year, but from what I have been led to believe, he's basically their best defensive outfield prospect, and he also hit 18 homers with 43 steals this year with a 373 OBP, 138 WRC plus across high A and double A. Roccaforte, 23 years old, so if he struggles in the AFL, that would be a pretty big red flag for a player like this. But I think he's got some similarities to like a Jacob Marcy from a few years ago, where there's big time speed, there's a little bit of power, some OBP skills. So I like Roccaforte as a sleeper. I think I've got him in the top 300 or so, but I think he could be kind of more of a consensus top 200 guy after the AFL.
What I also like is that like he might be one of those players that he's consistently leading off. I wouldn't be surprised. Like looking at their team, you're probably going to have some version of like, I guess they're both lefties, but like Dante Nori or Roccaforte being the leadoff guy. And then guess who's hitting behind them? Sebastian Walcott, Aidan Miller, and Chase DeLauder. Like that's ridiculous. So there's a lot of run opportunities. Probably going to let those guys run. I remember I saw Roccaforte. He came out here and played in rookie ball, whatever it was, 2 years ago or whatever. And I remember like his first game in, it's like 4 stolen bases. Like he's super, super hyper aggressive on there. His bat to ball skills look like they've improved. This is another home environment. This is his stadium that he does for spring training. So I think this is a nice sneaky one.
All right. Well, she got another sleeper.
I definitely have, and I actually struggle between which one of these guys I want to put out. So I'll say both of the names, but I'll give you my pick.
Yeah.
Is because they're both Pirates. And it's Esmeralda Valdez and Tony Blanco. And I decided to go with Tony Blanco here. This team.
Because you like fun. It's because you like
fun. This, I said this in my breakdown show. This might be the power team. You might have struggles with batting average, but between Valdez, Blanco, and Charlie Condon, you might have the biggest exit velocities and the biggest distance of any. The reason Tony Blanco is interesting, not only is he 6'7", 240 plus, but he's the dude that put up, I think it was like a 117 or 120. He's put up some ridiculous max EVs. He's going to put up a max EV that we're all going to tweet about. I think I did a prediction in my prediction show where, or whenever I did it, where I'm like, I already predict to you, I will be at Salt River. I will be videoing Tony Blanco. He will hit one that is so loud because the stadium's empty, so ridiculous. He will stare at it, and I will be tweeting about it, and it's going to get a lot of retweets because, oh my God, if you fantasy, it's kind of like there's a limitation, obviously, to like, Tony Blanco's overall value. But from an AFL standpoint, this is absolutely a place that he could thrive. He's 20 years old. He's going to put up the biggest max exit velocities. He did hit 8 homers in 30 games this year. There might be more fantasy value across the board. He's either I think a really cool player to pick up for free right now. And then when he pops off in the AFL, if he does, you can trade him out or maybe see if there's something more of it. But you want to talk about fun. Tony Blanco is a guy that is going to get some eyes this year. And maybe we transfer that to Esmeralda Valdez, who got to the Futures game. Also, he was like, I think by the Futures game, he was one of 2 teenagers or 2 20 or under players with 20 plus homers. Him and Lazaro Montes, I think, were the crew. But Valdez has got insane big power as well. So this is the power fun team. But I think Blanco is like a total sleeper to watch out here, if nothing more than just opening people's eyes up when we get to share, because we will have data. Salt River Fields, his home team, is the one guaranteed that you get StatCast data from. Some of the other stadiums don't have it. This one does. Home games, you will get it for Tony Blanco. And when everyone sees the average of max EVs, we're all going to just be oohing and on.
Yeah, he's not top 5 for MVP, but he's probably top 5 for guys that Welsh is going to not put his phone away for during an at-bat.
100%. He's going to go so much higher than you think in this draft. I'll tell you right now. I'll make a prediction. I'll bet you Nate Handy's going to take him like 5 overall. Like Tony Blanco in our like AFL draft will go so much higher because of the ridiculous power potential.
No, he doesn't seem like a Nate Handy guy. He's too trendy. He's too mainstream. I feel like Nate Handy might be into. So I got 2 more quick sleepers. Sam Antonacci with the White Sox. I feel like he could be a Nate Handy type of guy. And then you mentioned Dante Nori with the Phillies.
That's
end of the year on fire. and he's been stealing a ton of bases. And then Hendry Mendez with the Twins also kind of ended the year on fire after getting traded from Philly to the Twins. Just a few sleepers there. I think Antonacci actually has like some similarities to like Caleb Durbin in the past too. I've compared him a little bit to like ceiling of Nico Horner, but just really good bat to ball skills and the type of guy that's going to make the pitches out there throw strikes. So yeah, that's looking forward to the AFL, looking forward to this, my first ever AFL season long league.
Like you said, season long. Yeah.
I've only done AFL DFS with Paul Stars. So AFL season long league, can't wait. But Welsh, let's talk some P1 ADP. Do you want to just kind of give just a quick breakdown of how you do this, how many people take part, et cetera?
Sure. Yeah. So like I said, I've been doing this for 5 or 6 years. I'd have to go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I guess this is like the 5th year I've been doing it. And what I do is I do multiple drafts a year. It's anywhere from 4 to 5 drafts with partial industry people. So just, smart friends, people that I know and stuff like that. I get to know more people that reach out to me or whatever. And I get industry people in, like James has taken part in every single one I've ever done. You get a bunch of industry people. And then what I do is I've got Patreon in thisleague.com, and I get hardcore dynasty prospect people involved as well. And I said this on my most recent show. I like to do it like that because I don't want just industry. To be fair, hardcore dynasty people that are probably listening to this and stuff, yeah, you are the smarter minds, and industry can tell it. But you don't all play with James. You don't all play with Jeff Ponce or Chris. You don't play with everybody like that. So I like to have a collection of people that like to play dynasty, kind of no prospects, really no prospects, and industry, to give a real proper representation of like what the ADP can look like. And I do multiple, so it helps with variance. We had one guy go in the top 20, and then in another league, the same player went like almost outside the top 100. So like the ADP creates variance, and it's just something that doesn't exist out there, and it's something I've been doing for a long time. I usually try to do a couple a year, and you can use it for a multitude of different things, whether it is a heat check. You've always really smartly said you like to gauge it, to use it as like, what's the market feel on a player? If you're starting up new drafts, it kind of helps you as well. I just think it's a really great tool to kind of understand public perception for good or worse on a player. And like I said, 2 or 3 of these a year, we compare them against each other. There's lots of cool data with it, but that's relatively the structure. And also I try to use the MLB standard eligibility. So if you're prospect eligible through the rest of the season, there's a couple slips I have in these and I have to delete them and get them out. But like, if a guy has made a major league debut, that does not make them ineligible for this. If they were close to losing their eligibility or like we're at it, we boot them out. So like Jordan Lawler doesn't count, Luke Keeschel doesn't count, but guys that are not going to lose their eligibility going into next year, we keep them. So I try to use that MLB standard if you're curious at the logic behind some of the prospects in there.
So I was just stunned at how my top 10 or my top 12-ish, top 14-ish is basically kind of almost in line with this. And it tells me that there's like a very clear, so like Connor Griffin, number 1, Kevin McGonigle, Jesus Mate, 2 and 3. To me, that's just lock it in. That's the top 3.
Chalk.
And then in some order, it's Walcott, DeVries, Basayo, Weatherholt, Jenkins, Eldridge, Clark. And then I think you had Luis Pena and Travis Bazzana rounding out the top 12. I have Luke Keeschel and Sal Stewart rounding out my top 12 from my last update. So I had Keeschel and Stewart over Bazzana and Pena. But I had those first 10 names I listed were my top 10. And I think those 10 names plus Pena and Bazzana is the top 12 of yours. I mean, it seems very clear to me, like, that everyone's kind of in agreement and sort of what that top 10 to 12 or so looks like.
Which is wild, which is crazy because like I feel like we see way more variance because we affect this though. Like I acknowledge at the top of the last show that I did breaking like a lot of the stats down that I'm going to affect this more than anybody because these are mine. Like these are people that might go to my list. So, I'm not surprised if I see like Max Clark a little bit higher, something like that. So we acknowledge that openly, but also you James, are a critical piece to this because you are an industry leader in this. People pay attention to you. People are going to pay attention to Jeff and Cross and Clegg and others. So it's like, there's not a shock that some of our valuations show up, but what you're alluding to, the shock is that, is this like the first time that like we all have an agreement, whether a guy is 1 or well, better to say like 3 or 5, but for a top 10 for all of us to have essentially the same names, that is pretty crazy. I had Luke Keeschel pretty close. He had to be eliminated from this because he exhausted his prospect eligibility. I'm a little bit higher long-term on Clark and Bazana, which probably like why they went higher. But yeah, I totally agree. It is kind of shocking to see the lack of insanity in some players going up or down in this version of it, which I kind of think is a good sign, at least, that we're all kind of lockstep, whether we disagree on a player like 4 or 5 spots. So I had the same takeaway as you.
So I just wanted to give the listeners just a quick list of the guys I ended up with. I was picking first in one of the P1 ADPs. I got Connor Griffin, and then Jet Williams and Bryce Rayner at 24 and 25. Then another shortstop, Carson Williams, and then Rainiel Rodriguez of the Cardinals. Then Ryan Clifford and Ralphie Velasquez, getting some power hitting cornerbacks in there. So that's 7 hitters. And then I took my first pitchers with Carlos Lagrange and Tyler Bremner in the 8th and 9th round. And then probably my favorite pick, Connolly Early at pick 168. Shows you just how much time flies in the dynasty world. I don't think Connolly Early is lasting to pick 168 if we do that today.
No, I don't think so at all. Yeah, and I like that list. You had some good guys in there, and I'm welcome. We can talk about any ADPs.
I wanted to talk some FYPD stuff just because I was listening to your pod recapping like where that sort of all settled, and like I just think Tyler Bremner. Were you shocked about that too? People are going just too far in the don't trust the Angels direction with this guy. Like if he's gotten drafted, let me speak on it real quick, just to keep people context here. I'm so glad you brought this up because so what I did is I looked based on the ADPs of how did it line up for the first year player guys. Top 6, pretty standard. Really, whether it's again disagreements of Eli Willits or JoJo Parker, whatever you want to do. It's like the guys, the same relative guys. Then things started to open up. And I'm like, I think I went through the top 12 or 10 or 12 on that show. And Tyler Bremner didn't show up. And that was the one I literally was like, huh? Like, yes, maybe I think Andrew Fisher should be like a little bit higher or whatever, but Tyler Bremner did not show up. And that one did surprise me because there's also conversation. Yes, the Angels development is bad, which you'll speak on here, but that where we're lauding Seth Rodriguez is this insanely high talented, like fastball slider pitcher with plus pitches as a high school guy. There's plenty of conversation that Bremner might be Seth Rodriguez, but at the college level and could be at the major. So that did also take me by surprise. Bremner didn't finish, I believe, as a top 15 first-year player, and that's what the public decided. That was one of my biggest takeaways from the FYPD as well. Yeah, I just think it's just way too reactionary on the landing spot. It's to me, it's like at most like 10% of the valuation on a guy like that, where it's a guy that you love before the draft, a guy that, a lot of teams love before the draft, just goes to a team that people don't trust. And so people are just like, oh, I don't like this guy anymore. I mean, I understand moving him. If you want to move him from like your 2nd or 3rd pitcher to like your 4th or 5th pitcher in the class, like sure. But just this running away from Tyler Bremner because the Angels picked him. I think it's a great buying opportunity there. Okay. And I also kind of get the same, like I know Jamie Arnold went higher in this, but I think there's a little bit of that too with Jamie Arnold where like people are scared of the ballpark. The A's aren't, maybe they're becoming a team that people trust a little bit, but Jamie Arnold and Tyler Bremner were 2 guys I loved before the draft. And I think it's fair to just ding them like 5 to 10% based on the landing spots. But to me, they're screaming values right now. And I think like Kyson Witherspoon right there as well. And so it's leading me to really struggle with this class, Welsh, because I love, like, to me, the college pitching is kind of where the value is in that sort of late first round area of FYPDs. But, it's not as fun to take a pitcher in the first round as it is to take a hitter.
Yeah. So a couple things, by the way, I reported about this like a month or so ago, but there is thought that we might see Jamie Arnold in the AFL. He had said on the A's broadcast that he was ramping up, staying here locally in Mesa all through September to pitch in the fall. He said that. A's last year set a precedent, by the way, of cutting it in half and getting, I think Jamie Arnold is going to pitch in the AFL. I don't have any like side information. I just think that's a possibility. But back to your, I just wanted to say that because that'll be super fun. Yeah, back to your point with the pitching side. I don't know if you caught this in the show. I feel a lot of people have, and they've done it for a couple of years, doing this narrative of like trade out, like get later picks. You don't want the top end. I kind of disagree that I think like I'm becoming more comfortable with this draft. And to your point, with all this college pitching, I don't need to trade my first rounder to go and get like a third rounder. I would want to have like multiple picks on the back end because of exactly what you said. Bremner's falling. Bremner went after Kyson Witherspoon. Jamie Arnold is coming at a good value. You know, Kate Anderson isn't necessarily like, there's a lot of good pitching. This is a really, really good pitching market to get into because the valuations are so low. So yeah, I know what you're saying. Like, do you want to spend a first rounder on a pitcher? I don't know, but I think there's such massive questions based around some of the shortstops that are lower that you're kind of hoping on. Particularly, I didn't know if you were going to hit this or not, but like I said it in that show, I'm shocked at how high Billy Carlson went. And I couldn't disagree more in the P1 ADPs that like, I would rather, I think, take some of this really, really high upside. We're not even talking about Gage Wood either.
Yeah, I love Gage Wood. Yeah,
there's just like such good stuff out of the pitchers that I am in agreement with you. And the public perception is negative on these pitching. And I think it's kind of incorrect. That is definitely a big takeaway we took from this.
So what I want, like, it's a lot easier said than done, but what I would want is just a bunch of picks kind of in that like 8 to 20 range.
Totally.
Just because you don't know who's going to fall there, but you just know, like, you could get Andrew Fisher and a Bremner and maybe Arnold, or like, I really like Charles DeValin, who I took late in the P1 ADP mocks. Like Dax Kilby of the Yankees is just, so much hype right now. So I love that kind of like 7 to 20, like 8 to 15 range of FYPDs.
Oh, dude, if you could give me like 10 through 15, if I get 3 picks, like 10 through 18 or something like that, and I could tell me I could get Andrew Fisher. The Witherspoon is screwing me up. Kason Cunningham with the Diamondbacks, and then get me like a Tyler Bremner. If I get those 3, I'm through the roof. In the chat, Xavier Nayans, that's another guy that I'm really high in. If I got like 3 of add Nayans to that list, and if you want, throw Gage Wood in there. So if I got like 3 of those 5 guys between picks 10 through 20, and I could do that, I think I'm coming out as a huge winner. So I do believe more than ever, there's more. We kind of always say like, oh, there's more value, but there's more value because of like, there's so much good college stuff that's getting pushed back. So completely agree. Pitching very specifically though, there's a ton of upside that is going so much later.
Welsh, I was curious to see that, like, I feel like Colt Emerson gets just all kinds of hype, and was a little surprised, honestly, that he didn't make the sort of top 12-ish area. He's not in my top 12, but he is in my top 20. Where did he settle? And then there's also just the fact that, like, the same thing with like Connolly early, like, so much can happen in like 2 to 3 weeks with this stuff. Like I would also say like Leo DeVries probably maybe is even a little bit higher if we do this like today instead of doing it like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Let's hit on all 3 of those guys on just early, just real quick, cause I'm looking at it. Here's an example for you. Nolan McLean ended up going as the 20th overall player on this. And that was deservedly so, by the way. Like, he's been a unicorn where some of those guys haven't, you saw like Tong get blown up and stuff. He only one of the 4 drafts. And by the way, I consider it 2 industry people. Our boy Dan Fu is in there and Matt Eddy both took him. That, like, I think that's a good representation of like the good stuff. Jonah Tong went 26. So what I'm getting at is like early might've been like more like in the 40s, had like it been right now, and you're seeing him top off. Maybe it would have been closer to Tong. Emerson ended up being 17 on this list. And I'll give it to you. Ooh, this is almost one I missed. One of the things I always like to break down is I created the all industry team. So in my episode, I do like different stuff. And I just tell you about like, here's some guys that had big variance and here's the top 12 and here's a first year player. And at the end, you were involved in a few of them. You probably heard where there were only 6 players that exclusively industry people took. I kind of think that's telling sometimes. That says like, the people that are doing this as a living or, are doing as a partial living, like they are committed to these players. I'm saying this to all say Colt Emerson was almost one of those. 3 of the 4 leagues, he was taken by industry people. Doc took him, Jeff Ponce took him, and Alex Jensen took him. He had a very low variance, a high of 13 and a low of 22. So he was never going past the mid-second round there, or like, I guess the late second round. So that's a pretty high range. And to your point, like maybe he would be a little bit higher if it was right now. But I'd also point out on the Leo side, Leo is 6 overall on this list. And only one time, let me see. Yeah, actually, this is a funny one. He went 5, 6, 6, and 13. So the low variance kept him from probably ranking even a little bit higher. So maybe he would be 5 if we did it right now, like unanimously. But I think like this is a really good representation of him. I think Colt's a pretty good representation, but he might push the top 12. And I think Conley would probably be like somewhere between the top 40. That would be my guesstimation based on just how I've done these before. You're muted.
The Colt one's a perfect encapsulation of where he's at. The DeVries one, it's just like, yeah, he was 6, but he's also hit 6 homers since we did this.
You could almost be like, would someone have taken him like 3? So like it's something I didn't say before. When you talked about the top 3 guys and Griffin, McGonigle, and Made, only 2 instances were one of those 3 not taken in the top 3. In League 1, Made was taken 4th. And in League 4, McGonigle was taken 4th. So the caveat I would throw out here is like, to your point, how we did it right now and what Leo's doing, maybe Leo's the guy that pushes in and someone's like, you know what? I want Leo over Made. I think that could be seen as maybe the public perception. So like there isn't a lot of value here, but what's like a takeaway? I might look and be like, maybe based on this, there's a little bit more value in Leo. Maybe you could buy and have a little bit more upside on, you pay up for him. You got to pay a top 10 prospect, but maybe he is closer to top 3 than he is closer to being like bottom half of a first round pick.
All right, Welsh, get you out of here on this one. Where did Pirates Buzz Prospect of the Year, Edward Florentino, rank?
Edward Florentino, who, by the way, if you take out Connor Griffin, because Connor Griffin was like the number 1 pick, and somehow like 3 of the 4 people in the industry had the number 1 overall pick. If you get rid of Griffin, there are 5 players that were all industry team. Edward Florentino was all industry. He was the highest ranked player that was taken exclusively through the industry. Tim Kanak, Jeff Ponce, Eric Cross, Chris Blessing all made sure to take him. And he ended up going 18 overall in this list. He twice was drafted in the exact same spot at 17, and the others were in the mid-20s. So you can still see there's a little bit of like trying to connect the dots on where he is. I think the upside is immense, but if you are looking at this list and you're trying to think about proximity, I would say it is more than fair to say there's no player that is further away inside the top 25 than Florentino, which maybe affected why people didn't want to take him higher, because guys that went above him were Colt Emerson, Paula, and then you have like some of the pitchers, and for the most part, it's just guys that are like a AA or higher. So as a low A type of guy, he was able to push that envelope. He was also taken by all industry. I think it really, really shows you the buzz around him. And I'm not sure what the application is. Like if someone views him as a post 50 guy, this is screaming at you that he's a big buy. I also don't think he's a sell right now, because I think there's a world is his oyster type of thing. But in a world that definitely values proximity, I'm a little bit more value over proximity, but I think a lot of people are proximity over that. Florentino was able to be a top 20 prospect. And I think that says a lot.
Yeah, I would agree. It's not necessarily actionable, but it's just, I know there's people that maybe have Florentino and are wondering if they should cash him out, or just like kind of wondering if he really, like, even though I've had Florentino in my top 25 for a couple updates, I still each update I have people like, should he really be that high? And so I think it's useful for like the skeptics to kind of see that there's this much buy-in from across the industry.
Great. Yeah, great way to put it. Like he never went past the top 30. He was in all drafts seen as a top 30 pick. And like, that's a great takeaway from it. Like if anybody is trying to tell you otherwise, they're wrong. Or if anybody is not valuing, it's for you to jump on the opportunity. Because now, is there risk? Yeah, I think we should understand that there's risk. He's super low, the swing and miss, but there's so many improvements, so many loud tools. But yeah, a fantastic way to say it, that don't let anybody tell you otherwise, because at least, industry from this perspective of what we were doing here, never outside the top 30.
Welsh, why don't you let people know where they can track down this ADP?
Yeah, inthisleague.com. That's my Patreon. Just trying to always do stuff. Group me rooms I do. It's like Discord. This list, my top 500 prospects, my top 400 dynasty list. It's updated every month. It actually should be updated later when I'm off of this. I'm going to go and do that. And titled with it is the prospect ADP that has previous information from February. It has all the stuff we've talked about, do them from time to time. And also when you're part of the Patreon, that is also how you can take part in these drafts with everybody, which is awesome. By the way, I'm so lucky to be great friends with you and so many people in the industry that are like willing to do it. I think we all enjoy the exercise. And again, I'm always thankful that you take part in it and want to talk about it. Like, that's like the cool thing. We all do stuff and we're like, oh, is this worthwhile? Is this worth their time? Like, it's always proof and point that like you always take time, James. You want to talk about these things because I think it creates really good conversation and it's a good heat check. So if anyone wants to check it out, support what I do, inthisleague.com.
Yes, absolutely support the Welsh, and I may or may not. We'll see if this AFL draft gets cracking. I might talk about it on next week's pod. But either way, YouTube 15 if you want to get 15% off, and check out the top 400 prospect rankings update, which will be live in a couple weeks. But otherwise, thanks to the Welsh, and I'll have another episode next week.